For this video, you'll need a few things. One, a place to write these notes. Either write them onto the sheet or into your notebook. Two, this actual sheet to complete the practice and track the video. And three, something to write with and also a marker. In English, verbs are words that express actions or states of being. The verb to sing in English changes based on the subject, but it only changes in one way, adding an S. Again, these are verbs, not adjectives. So we're looking for subject-verb agreement. The central idea of subject-verb agreement is as follows. Subject-verb agreement uses number and gender to determine the correct verb endings for a specific subject. 2. Conjugation is essential as well. Conjugation is the process of changing the verb infinitive to make it agree with the subject performing the action. And then 3, most verbs follow a conjugation pattern based on their two-letter endings, AR, ER, or IR. We've seen the verb ser, and we've tested our ability to use subject-verb agreement with that verb. Conjugation is the process of doing the same thing with a variety of verbs. Here it says, draw one line under the subject and two under the verbs. Again, one under the person doing the action, two underneath the action itself. If there is a separate verb ending, go ahead and circle it. And then again, in English, you can see the verb ending circled are S. That's the only change to those verbs because we're talking about the present tense. Go through some of that practice for level A. Again, we're underlining those subjects, the person, place, or thing doing the action or in a state of being, and then underlining whatever they're doing twice. En español es un poco diferente. In Spanish, like in English, however, verb endings change according to the subject. The biggest difference is that there are 6 different verb endings. I'll say it again. 6 different verb endings for each verb. Changing these endings is called conjugation. Conjugation is what we've expressed up here. Again, it's the process of taking an infinitive like bailar, cantar, or andar and removing the ending and attaching the correct ending. If we were to go over this, we would see that the following are examples of infinitives. Each verb below is an infinitive because they end in AR and are not conjugated, meaning they haven't shown us who our subject is by their ending. Each of these endings here, o, as, a, amos, ais, an, each of those endings show us a first person subject, o goes with yo, a second person subject, tú goes with as, and a third person subject, él, ella, and usted go with a. We can see that this is set up in our normal verb chart setup with our singular pronouns here and our plural pronouns here. Again, the process for conjugation is, as it says here and as you should write here in your notes, remove the AR ending, add the ending that matches the number and gender of the subject. So, yo cantar will become yo canto. Tú cantar will become tú cantas. Nosotros cantar, we sing, would be nosotros cantamos. Again, remove the AR, add the correct ending. Now with that in mind, we're going to jump into some practice. Part B is where you should for sure begin your practice. Part A is optional. Draw one line under the subject and 2 lines under the verb, just like it said before in part A, but now we're doing so in Spanish. So we have here Carlos, and then we have canta bien. Canta is the action that he's doing. Canta significa to sing, y Carlos es el sujeto. So tenemos una línea debajo de Carlos y 2 líneas debajo de canta. We have a circle, ponemos un círculo alrededor or sobre la terminación, the ending. So we put a circle around the ending just like the second sentence of the direction says. Then circle the verb ending. We've circled the A, which shows us very clearly that we have a third person ending. I'm going to type right here, however, this really quick, just so we can keep in mind our annotations. So for number one, we have third person. Oh, that's a bit bigger than I need it. Let's make it this size. That works. Okay. So number one is third person singular. We know that because Carlos is talking about him, and Carlos is just one person, so it's singular. Same rules apply for our subjects from before. Now we just want to make sure we're using the correct ending. First, second, third. We have canta. It also says canta. One other way to double check our work is to say Carlos. Which subject pronoun could replace Carlos? Él. Él could replace Carlos, and that's because he and él, Carlos and he could swap in that sentence without changing the meaning. Okay? Número dos. Dice, ellos caminan a casa. Try that with me. Ellos caminan a casa. Bien. Now let's go ahead and annotate really quickly before we go forward. So annotating our subject is underlined once. We can see it's ellos. Hopefully we see immediately that that's third person. And it ends in an S, so we know it's plural. Caminan significa to walk. And who's walking? They are walking. Because it's more than one person that we're talking about, it's third person plural, and we have used an AN ending on caminar. So in addition to understanding that, it says here that we would like to circle that ending. I've highlighted already, but again, circling is what it's asking for. So be sure you also follow through on those directions. Okay. The next one has been started for you. Sara escucha la música. Otra vez, Sara escucha la música. Bien. As you do each example here, make sure you're underlining the subject and double underlining the verb. Follow the directions as they're given. If you'd like to continue annotation, you may. It'll be required in the next setup. Parte C. Complete the following sentences with the correct form of the verb hablar. So here we have some homework or some more practice for you as set up to test your ability now to select and change the verb hablar. I can't stress enough, again, all of your answers will have the verb hablar. Let's go into number one. Ellos hablan y descansan. They gave you two verbs here. The first blank is for hablar. Why have they chosen hablan? Pues hay dos razones por qué. La primera es este. So we have ellos como sujeto. Since ellos is our subject, we can now see and begin to understand that we'll use our subject for agreement. Again, what is the number of ellos? We know that because it ends in S, it is plural. Also, what is the person? Ellos. Is it talking about me, first person? No, when I say ellos, it's not about me. Is it talking directly to someone, about them? No. Usually when I say tú, or vosotros, or ustedes, that would be that option. In este caso, ellos is they, and it'd be a masculine or mixed group, so that'd be third person plural. If we scroll back up, we can see that third person plural, first, second, third, on the plural side would be an, and that gives us habla. Let's do one more together, and then I'll leave you to your practice here. Jose blank inglés. So we can see here it's third person singular, talks about Jose, which is only one person. Talking about one person makes it third person singular. That is the annotation you want to provide. Identify the subject by underlining it, and then go forward with the annotation. We would take hablar, our verb, and type it there, remembering that we want to conjugate To conjugate hablar, we would need to know the person and number of the subject because we need to make sure we remove the AR ending and add the matching ending. So hablar becomes hable. If we go back up, after removing it, we add the ending that matches the number and gender. If we go here, we can see it's first, second, and third person, and it's singular. Since it's singular, we would just simply add that A, and it would become habla. Go forward with the rest of those examples. I've underlined the first 3 subjects for you. Make sure you include the annotations as you continue practice C. Finalmente, parte D. Go back and look at the endings for part A and B. So that'll require you to check out part A to do this correctly. Fill in the table below, then answer the questions that follow. So the table is asking you to go ahead and type the infinitive. Infinitives in English all have 2 before them. So in number 1, it's talking about singing, so the infinitive or verb action would be to sing. Because it has an S ending, that would count as an English verb ending, and you add the S. When you go below, though, you can see that in number 2 here, as it is in activity A, when you go up to number 2 says that they walk home. Now, unlike number 1 and number 3, there's no S ending, so that in English would be having no verb ending. When we see that here, we would leave that verb ending space blank. If there was any part of this that was confusing for part D, what I want you to focus on is this part B activity. Again, I'll say that. If this section of the activity kind of doesn't make sense to you, I will give you a pass on that. I am not as interested in your ability to identify English verb endings. So again, I would not do this if this seems slightly or remotely confusing. What is for sure required, and what I am looking for from all of us, is that we all cover these here. Make sure you run through activity B because in Spanish, every verb has a verb ending. Make sure you highlight which verb endings are included. Based on number 1, we can see from activity B, cantar uses an A ending, removing the AR and adding an A. Número 2, caminar uses an AN ending, removing the AR and adding an AN because it is third plural. This is just our test to be able to see and recognize verb endings. You should have them circled in activity B if you completed the activity all the way. Read the question below and then complete your practice as instructed. Buena suerte y nos vemos en clase.